Well, a hate mail, a death threat, and then some remarks that didn't take too kindly by some folks that came from a second-term congressman. This started all last week when Representative Steve Cohen compared the Tea Party movement to the KKK in such a way. He was a guest on a satellite radio show. Going to play the clip of what he said. Go ahead and play it now. We're also going to show it to you, and then we're going to talk to him about it. Let's listen.
The Tea Party people are kind of like without robes and hoods. They have really shown a very hardcore, angry side of America that is against any type of diversity.
All right, that is what he had to say then. Let's see what he has to say now. The congressman from Memphis, Congressman Cohen, joins us now this morning live. Sir, thank you for being here with us on this Saturday morning. Of course, you know those comments got a lot of reaction and got some response to you, some threats coming your way. So I want to ask you now to explain. It's one thing to say the Tea Party folks are kind of angry, but you used the comments that they were angry without the robes and the hoods. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, I've gotten a lot of criticism, but I've gotten a lot of support, too. And people in my district have been very supportive. The fact is the leaders of the Tea Party movement did not repudiate and stand out against the spitting on Emanuel Cleaver, an African-American member of Congress, or the N-word being used by certain members of the Tea Party on the Capitol against John Lewis, a civil rights hero, or Emanuel Cleaver. And when the leadership and people don't stand up and speak out against something, there's surety for those remarks, and it hurt the whole Tea Party movement. Certainly there are Tea Party people that don't have those type of attitudes, but they are predominantly 99% white. They don't represent diversity in our society, which is the beauty of America.
Well, I guess, Representative Cohen, that's what a lot of people have with it, because there are a lot of moms and dads and middle-class folks out there who are doing a part of those marches, and it sounds like a member of the Congress is labeling them as racist. Is that the case?
Well, I would say that there's a 99% white in that crowd. I walked among the crowd.
Now, that doesn't mean they're racist, though, does it? Just because it's a lot of white people. I mean, you go to the floor of the U.S. Senate and you see a lot of white people, and one black guy is a member.
Well, that's true. And I'm not going to say certainly they're not all racist, but there is an undercurrent when you're against health care and you're against government programs that have a de facto effect upon minorities more than they do others. And Dr. Martin Luther King said that one of the greatest inhumanities in our society was the unequal distribution of health care and was for national health care. He was assassinated in my city. We remembered that event last weekend. To think that 42 years later we finally get health care after 42 years and people are against it, and that's what makes them rally against their government and act out, to me, it's inhumane.
Well,
no, they're not all racist, no question. But the fact is they're against government spending, they're against programs, and there are certain similarities in their tactics to people who have historically been against civil rights and against progress.
Well, they would say, of course, on that side, that it's not just because they're against health care, they're against some of the spending in it. Maybe they like some parts of it, but overall, and again, I'm just saying what they would say to you, they're just against some of the big spending and some of the parts of the health care reform and not just against it for the sake of it. I know as well, I want to ask you, and I want to make sure I get you on the record, and I don't think you're saying they're all racist, but as a movement itself, what we know as the Tea Party, do they have a role to play in moving forward and the dialogue, the political dialogue of this country, or do you dismiss them as a whole as just, frankly, racist and on the fringes?
Well, now I would not dismiss them as racist. I would say that to a goodly extent they're on the fringes because they're against what was, I think, the greatest social progress and reform that this country has made since the 60s, and that's this health care bill that we just passed. They're against government spending. They first started against the TARP bill, and the TARP was a very difficult vote. Nobody wanted to bail out the banks, but that worked, and it was a bill that's been, almost all that money's been paid back and paid back with interest. So they were wrong on the issue that was their inception, because if we didn't pass the TARP, the economic financial structure of this country and the world would have collapsed. And so you just can't be against things that the government gets involved in, and government is Social Security and Medicare and civil rights and voting rights and all kind of aid for people with disabilities, and those are good programs.
Well, last thing before I let you go, I have to let you address this criticism, and that you did this, it was a calculated move to stir people up in your district. You are in a predominantly black district there in Memphis. I'm from that area as well. And you're going to be going up in the primary. A guy who's pretty popular in a lot of ways, a former mayor, Willie Harrington, who some of his supporters have actually said the seat that you hold right now is an African-American seat, and a black person needs to be in it, and you're kind of just doing this as a political maneuver to stir it up. I'll let you respond.
Well, no, not at all. I won my last election with 79% of the vote in the primary against a single African-American candidate, and I won my general with 89%. I did 20 points better than Don Lewis. I assure you I'll do just as good this fall. When I did that program, it was a satellite radio show in Los Angeles. To be honest with you, while the Young Turks, the hosts, have kind of become my friends, one of them I met with Julian Bond when he was in town about 3 weeks ago on a civil rights program. I had no idea anybody listened. I just didn't realize that people listened and that it becomes viral and goes national. I basically thought I was talking to these fellas in Los Angeles and a couple of thousand people would hear it, and that was it. And there was no calculation at all.
Well, you know how these things sometimes can take off, and this one did. But we appreciate you taking the time, coming on today, and giving you a chance to explain exactly what you meant. So, sir, we appreciate you. We'll be following that race, and I certainly will as a guy from that area. So, thanks for being here. You enjoy the rest of your weekend.